The setup for the Eastern mandala and the Western rose window are all going to start off the same. So you're working with a 12-inch by 12-inch piece of paper. This is a scrapbook size piece of paper. You can get this stuff at any craft store available to you. So we want to find the exact center point on this piece of paper. So think about this. What is half of 12? Is 6. So lining up your ruler with the piece of paper down at the bottom, all right, it's going to be 12 inches. And you want to make a tick mark right where the 6 is. So here is the 6 inches, and you're going to do this on each side of the paper. So I'm just going to rotate my paper, and I'm going to mark the 6-inch mark on each side. So here we go. Marking the 6. Rotate that piece of paper, mark the 6 on each side so that you'll have 4 marks. And take your time when you do this. Make sure it needs to be precise. Once you've done that on all 4 sides, you're going to line those up. So I'm going to start off with that the left and right hand side. I want to make sure that it lines up nice and perfect. And then all I'm going to do is right where that 6 is on that line, I'm going to make a little horizontal line across it. I'm going to put a little dot right where that is. All right, so you can faintly see that. And draw lightly when you're doing this stuff, because these lines are just guidelines that you're creating. You don't need to make these really dark marks. And we're going to do the same for the vertical. So the top and the bottom, I'm going to line those up with that ruler. Right where those meet, X marks the spot. So that is the center point of our 12-inch by 12-inch piece of paper. And now what we're going to do is use a compass. So I have a compass here, and it has, on my compass, it has inches on one side and centimeters on the other. And it's really difficult to see. Let me see if I can zoom in. Now, for this particular one, I like using the centimeters. So I have mine marked at 14 centimeters. On the inch side, that's like 5 1/4 inch. So I just feel like it's easier to work with the centimeters for this particular assignment. But I've got it spread out to the 14 on that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little needle point on the compass, and I'm going to put it directly on that X, right where that spot is. X marks the spot. Once I've got that right on that spot, and I've got my compass set to the size I want, which is at the 14 centimeters, I'm going to lay that down, and I'm going to start to spin my compass, and I want to do this lightly, and it might take a few times to get that circle drawn on there. You want to make sure that it stays at that spot, and it's just drawing that circle on there lightly. I'm going to rotate my hand. And I've got a very faint circle, and that's good. We don't really need it to be super dark. Now, if you want to, you can go back over it, and you will eventually go back over it when you add in all your details to it. Now we're going to divide this into sections. And this is where things kind of shift and change between the rose window and the mandala. So the Eastern mandala, we're going to divide this, and the minimum of sections or slices that you need to have is 8. Think of like a pizza. So you would have the vertical, the horizontal, and then you're going to have diagonals that's going to break in and create 8 sections. With the rose window, I think it's best for you to have a minimum of 4 sections, and then you're going to go from there. So with the rose window, you are doing no less than 4 divisions. With the mandala, no less than 8 sections. So let's mark these up. Now what I'm going to do is we've already got those 6-inch marks all around the paper, which is great. That's our we're going to divide this into 4 sections. So I'm just going to line my ruler up again, and I'm going to draw as lightly as I can. I'm lining that ruler up with the 6-inch mark at the bottom and the 6-inch mark up at the top, making sure my ruler is nice and straight and even with those lines. Take your time, don't rush this part. And we're going to draw lightly with our pencil. These are just our guidelines. And I'm going to draw a little bit darker so that you can see on the screen, but I would like you to draw as lightly as you can because we really don't want to see them unless it's part of your design. But I've got them on there so you can, see really good. And let's do the horizontal. So here's my 6-inch. I'm going to line my ruler up with those marks I've already created. Make sure everything looks perfect before I make my mark. And there are the 4 sections, nice and equally spaced. So from this point, you could work on your rose window, and this would help you then design, the tracery that you're going to choose. And yours is being done based on, a window that you find that inspired you. So you could, simply stick with these 4, or if you feel that you need more sections to divide on there, then let's continue on with the video. As far as those that are doing the Eastern mandala, we have to have a minimum of 8 sections. So we've got halfway there. Now to do the middle parts, simple. You're going from this corner right to where X marks the spot. So you're going to take your ruler and you're going to line up with the corner of the paper and with that point right there on our X marks the spot. Make sure that things don't get shifted. Just because you look down here at the bottom and it looks right and then you move it up here doesn't mean you need to go back and look here, because this could shift again. So just make sure both are equally spaced. And you don't have to draw your line all the way to the corner because we just need this for the circle for our mandala. So all I'm going to do is take from that to the very end of our circle, and that's divided it now into 2. And you're going to repeat this process for each one. So from inside where X marks the spot, down here to the corner of that paper, make sure things line up nice and neat. Make sure both are where exactly they need to be. Put a little pressure on that ruler and draw to the end of the circle. Again, from the corner of that paper to X marks the spot. Line those up, make sure they're nice and even, and draw your guideline. And the last one, from the corner, X marks the spot. Make sure everything's nice and even, and draw your guideline. So now you have divided this into 8 sections. So we drew a circle, we divided it into sections. This paper is from the the Eastern mandala, but you could have the same type set up for your Western rose window. What sets it apart is that the rose window is actually going to be done on a clear piece of transparent paper. This will make it more like stained glass. So we're going to do a little bit of a different, we're using a different medium for this one than the Eastern mandala. The Eastern mandala, we're just simply doing it on the white paper. Okay, so with the Western rose window, you're actually going to be using alcohol markers and then finalizing it with a puff paint to do the tracery. So I'm going to give a small demonstration on how this is going to work. So once you have your radial design drawn out, your template drawn out on your white paper, you're still going to add features to this. You're going to design this based on a rose window that you found inspiring using that website. So I'm going to show you a different one that's already been worked on a little bit. Here's an example. Okay, so underneath here we have the entire drawing, and it's just really the sketch of it, and it's outlined to help us a little bit further. So we have our rose window, our inspired rose window that was based on 7 divisions, and it has a little bit of the tray fold design inside of it. So what you're going to be doing is sketching it out, but more of a finalized piece, except you're going to be adding the color to the transparency sheet. So once you've designed it on the white paper, you're then going to put the transparency sheet on there. And you're going to add color using alcohol markers. Now, I tried doing this with Sharpies. It didn't work really well. I tried watercolor, and the water, because the transparent paper is not porous, it was not accepting of the watercolor, and it simply just sat on top of the paper. So the only thing that I found that really worked well with the transparency is alcohol markers. All right, so any brand of alcohol marker will do. And I'm going to give a small demonstration of how this will work. So once you've got your design drawn on the white paper and you've maybe outlined it with the black pen, now it's time to add your color. You're going to put the clear transparency sheet on top. And I have a small one here. All right. So what you're going to do is use the alcohol markers to really design things. If you are left-handed, I suggest working from the right-hand side towards the left. It just makes things a lot easier. I'm a lefty. But you're going to color in that area, whatever your design is. I'm just going to use the real simple here. I'm adding in my color with my alcohol markers. And they blend quite well. I really like that for this if we want to make it look like a stained glass. All right, I'm going to do a lighter shade so we can see, because it's really dark. I like these on the transparency paper because they blend well. And they give it this stained glass look. There are two different ends. So when you have finer details, use the fine point. Then there's the broad size window, or broad size marker, not window. Looks like a candy corn. Okay. So after you have gotten the whole paper done with the marker, you want to add in your fine points. So you could use a black Sharpie, but I just don't think that they work as well. I'm going to show you, how a Sharpie works on here. It actually just kind of removes the ink. You could do a black Sharpie if you really want to. It just kind of picks up stuff. So that's an option if you'd rather use a Sharpie on yours. that is an option, just let me know and I'll make sure I get one to you. But I think it would be a lot cooler if we had something that was more three-dimensional. So I wanted to use a puff paint. And this is just a 3D style paint that we're going to add on top of this. It doesn't have, you know, a very fine point to it, so it comes out quickly. I always have a spare piece of paper just off to the side, just to kind of squeeze this out a little bit and, you know, understand it's how to control it a little bit before I start, because, you know, you just need to barely squeeze it. However, if this is not something that you want to work with and you'd rather work with a Sharpie, because maybe you have some finer details, like you can work with either one, but maybe you've got something like here, okay, where we're going to kind of add the outline of the pig, of the boar. All right, that puff paint might be too thick in those areas. So if I'm trying to add the eyes, I might want to do that with a Sharpie. But really for these, the puff paint's more for the tracery, okay, for the design around areas. That's what it's going to be for. See these fine details, you know, the eye, might want to use a fine point Sharpie to do something like that, or a micron pen, something of that. But the puff paint is more for the large areas, the tracery, to make it more three-dimensional. So if you're talking about, you know, minor details inside of your artworks, probably want to use a Sharpie for that. So all you're going to do with this, if we're trying to do the outlines of things, is we're just going to use that puff paint. And again, I like to use a piece of paper to kind of make sure I understand the control. And then I'm going to start laying that down on here. See, it comes out thick. That's why this isn't really for those minor areas. And I can always pick some of that up and move it around. If you wanted to use a paintbrush, maybe you have a thin, you know, paintbrush that you'd want to use. This part's going to be a little tedious. You're going to take your time. And I have a really big puff of it right there in that middle, so I'm just going to kind of spread it. And that's really how you want to use that. So again, if you're working with small details inside of your art pieces, let's use a Sharpie or a black alcohol marker for that type of thing. This is just merely for the tracery, for the outlines of the larger areas to kind of resemble a stained glass. And once it's all done, you'll be able to, and let it dry, but once it's all done, you'll have a transparency sheet that you could probably put on the window, and it will give us the same type of look as a stained glass. All right. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know, and good luck.